Good evening, everybody. Sorry I'm a little bit late going live tonight. Hopefully then that some people will see me pop up on their screen and join me. We're live in the members group this evening for a quick Q&A. It's the second Q&A. There was a Q&A last night if you're in America, but early this morning if you're in the UK. It went really well, and we talked a little bit about some of the top tips for starting the plan. So hopefully tonight, if anyone comes live with me and starts watching, then we can start to have any conversations that you've got about the plan, and hopefully this time we'll catch some of the people in Europe and other places in the world, and it'll help us to get some engagement in the group. Here's hoping anyway. Hi Sarah, hi Sherry, nice of you to pop in this evening and say hello. Hope all is good. Sarah, I hope you enjoyed your swim earlier and you had a nice afternoon. I did something really silly and came home, had lunch, and then I thought, okay, well I'll go and do my shopping. By the time I got to Lidl, it was 5 to 4, and of course it shuts at 4, so I didn't get much shopping, as you can imagine. So it's all a bit upside down here today, but never mind. So yeah, so Q&A this evening. Just a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, some of the sort of themes that I'm hearing from people, and the sort of things that people are talking about in the public group and in the members group as well. And hopefully people will be coming on board and asking questions as well. It's quite a quiet little group, so who knows who might turn up. I think last night at some point it was just my mum and my husband who were watching. It was a bit sad, but never mind. Anyway, so some of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about this evening in the members group is mindset related, really. I wanted to talk about some of the more sort of psychological and emotional aspects of both weight loss, of changing habits, things like that, because I think that it's all well and good, isn't it, to have that shopping list and to have the foods in the house, but because we live in that environment where food is so plentiful and so easy to actually get hold of, it can be quite easy for things to slip in, and for old habits to die hard. But also we use food in replacement for a lot of things in our lives. So there's a lot of gaps that food sometimes fills for us. So I wanted to talk really more about the sort of emotional and psychological side of changing our habits and changing the way we eat, because I think that's really important. And for me, it's certainly something that I didn't really think about until I was quite a way into the process. And I really did sort of start reflecting as to what was it? What was the trigger that actually changed things for me? Why did it work this time when it hadn't worked before? And what was it about this process that success came from? You know, what were the habits, what were the changes that I made? Because ultimately they were changes of behaviors and changes of assumptions and changes of thought processes that actually made me lose weight, just as much as it was the food. So so that's what I want to talk about, and I hope that you'll come in with some of your experiences or some of your thoughts on this as well, because I think it's really, really important that we don't just see this as a physical process, that we also see it in the sort of more holistic way of looking at things as well. Hello, right? So whoever's watching from my mum's house now, it could be my mum, but she doesn't use so many emojis, so it may well be one of my daughters. It's either Ellen or Amelia. So whoever it is, hello, good evening. You should be in bed now if it's Amelia. But they're at my mum's house watching. Okie dokie. So yeah, so I hope that we can have a bit of a two-way conversation about the sort of the mindset that it takes to make big changes in your life, and I hope that you can come at me really with some of your experiences and your thoughts regarding this. Oh, they're all there. We've got a huge audience in RADA watching this evening. Hello. You should each be be on your device, on a device each, so it looks like there's more people watching. That would be great. Yeah, so for me, I think terrible snacker. Yeah, so Sherry says, I was a terrible snacker even when not hungry. Boredom or feeling crappy would send me running for sweet or salty snacks. Absolutely. It's that immediate fix, isn't it? It's that immediate plugging of whatever gap or whatever issue it is with food. But as we know, in the long run, it doesn't make us feel any better, does it? That's the reality of it. And I think for me, there was a lot of assumptions that I made about myself as well. I used to think that I was quite sort of a big person, either genetically or just naturally quite a big person. I assumed that I had a big appetite, that I was a big eater, that I was a foodie, that I liked my food, and I kind of accepted that was my reality and that was my identity. I actually identified as a big person, and I think that went on for years and years, really, that I just assumed that that's the way it was. And of course, I had a husband who accepted me for whoever I was as well, which is great on one hand, but on another hand, it didn't give me any sort of nudge, really, that perhaps I'd gone past that sort of big person stage and was actually on the way to being really, really obese. So you've totally faced some of this hard. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hi, Terry. Nice of you to join us. This is evening time in the UK. So yeah, and Sarah, you definitely did get me thinking about this, because I was talking to my husband then in the car earlier and saying something changed, something must have triggered that change, and what was it? And to be honest, the change can't come from anybody else. It can't come from any external source, any third party. Yes, I had that kick, didn't I? I went into the doctors with this skin condition and came out with diabetes. It was a huge kick, and I probably needed it, because I was so accepting of that norm, of that reality, and I was so detached from what actually being in a healthy body felt like. It had been so long that how I was feeling at the time was very normal, and I was accepting of that reality, and I think it was very difficult to imagine the reality that I've got now and how different it is. And I was talking to Sarah earlier about I wish that I could just give people 10 minutes in this light, lean body to have that difference of reality, because I needed that at the time. Stairs feels different, walking around feels different, lifting shopping bags everything feels different, even getting in a car seat feels different, getting in a plane seat and having to actually tighten the straps up, it's a completely different reality. But I was so detached from that and so accepting of my reality at the time, that something really, really needed to change. So for me, I didn't tell anybody why I was on the journey at the time. It was quite private, and I think because I was just so ashamed that I had actually been diagnosed with an obesity related illness. That's quite a shock, isn't it, to have someone tell you not only are you fat, but you're so fat that you've actually made yourself sick. And I just wish that maybe I'd had that reality check before that, and I just hope that the time I spent diabetic didn't have any long-term impact on my organs. So yeah, quick to always blame my PCOS and meds for being a chunky woman, and although it does play a big part, Keto has shown I can help my symptoms. Yeah, absolutely. Being slim and healthy feels better. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm glad that we're having this discussion, because I think that we sometimes, we're very quick to make excuses, aren't we? I've used my husband as an excuse. I've used my children as an excuse. I've used work as an excuse, all these sorts of things. But even to the point where I was sort of blaming genetics. This is how my family is. My family is a big family. Well, no, we just haven't eaten as we should have eaten. And I think that I've proved to myself when I started to lose weight, and I couldn't believe the teeny tiny wrists that I had and the small feet and everything else, all these assumptions about myself, I had to change my mindset, and it took a long time. And for a long time, I couldn't get rid of my clothes. It took a while wearing those big baggy clothes to actually adjust my mindset to actually accept a different reality. So I think ultimately we have to realize that the responsibility of what we eat and what we do and when we eat lies with us. Unless we're a newborn baby being fed by somebody else, then the reality is that we are absolutely and positively in control of our health from now on. So that mindset change can be uncomfortable, because ultimately you need to address those, let's call them excuses. We like to call them reasons or obstacles or things in our way. But ultimately, we're just talking about a choice between eating carbs and not, and eating good food and not. And that's as simple as it is, really. It's a choice about what we're going to drink when we're thirsty. It's those tiny little choices, and only we can make them. So, yeah, I just wanted to come on and empower you, really, and say that what happens from now on is completely within your capability to do, and how we move forward is completely up to us. We're grown-ups and we can do whatever we want with our bodies. It's our choice. Even when there's other people that we're cooking for, there's ways around it. There's definitely ways around it. I've managed this. I've got young kids. They're watching. So and we're all still alive, we're all still healthy, we've all still eaten, but I've eaten keto, and they've done whatever they want to do. So it's definitely that. Okay, so it's easier to give an excuse than to admit there's an issue. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Oh no! Well, tell Daddy's naughty for saying that, but he did actually mention that you were looking really good, and that's the truth of it. When we eat keto, not only does our body go back to that healthy shape and size, but we do start to regain a little bit of youth as well, and we feel a lot more youthful. And I just want to say to people that going through this process, there are so many small changes that we need to celebrate. We need to make sure that we're not focused 100% on the scale, because as we know, and I'm sure we'll talk about that through the 28 days, this isn't just about weight loss. And when we change the body's composition, sometimes that means that we're putting on lean mass, and that does sometimes mean that the scale may not show us what we want to see. However, the body can actually change its composition, become leaner, can become more efficient, and we can start healing some of the damage that we've done to our organs and things. So as we're seeing those tiny little changes, and I know Sherry said something in the week, didn't she, about being able to get in the bath and having a gap either side of your bottom in the bath. Those are the sorts of things that we really need to celebrate, because the more we focus on all the positive aspects of what we're doing and the changes, what we're doing is we're positively praising, and we're giving ourselves positive feedback on all the effort that we're making. Now, when it's early days, you're not going to have someone in the first week say, "Oh, you've lost loads of weight, you look amazing." That does come further down the road. So in those first few weeks, when it is tough, when your family's telling you you're crazy for eating better, then sometimes something has to come from inside of us. We have to provide some of that motivation to make those changes, because sometimes it doesn't come from any third parties. Now, we're really lucky in the members group that we have each other to do this, and there's people just that little bit further down the line who can say, "We've been there, we understand where you are, and you can do it." But understand, in those moments of decision making, when you're at the shops, when you're writing your shopping list, when you're planning out your week, when you're deciding whether to watch a film or to prep some lunches for the week going ahead, those are those crucial moments. And those are the times you're actually going to be on your own. You're not going to have us, you're not going to have me there going, oh, cook the steak. You need to find that inner motivation, and we've all got it, because ultimately the reason that we've invested in the group, the reason that we're here, is that we've got that big why. We've got that big reason for making that change. And just remember that it is a series of tiny decisions, a series of tiny little actions and behaviors and habits that build up over time into this unstoppable snowball effect, because there does come that point where the weight is falling off, you're starting to wear the types of clothes that you're wearing, you're starting to feel the benefits, and at that point it gets so easy to make these decisions. So what I'm saying is, in those first 28 days, when we first start making that change, you've got to dig deep. You've got to go right inside yourself and drag out that motivation, because the easy stuff is coming. But you've got to get over this first hill. You've got to get over those first couple of weeks until this becomes a habit. Once it's a habit, it's as easy as all the other routine things that you do in your life. You don't have to think about how to drive, or you don't have to think about how to put the kettle on and make a cup of tea. These things become very normal, and keto becomes normal as well. However, it's making that decision to make the change, and the only person who can do it is you. And believe it or not, there's not a single other person in this world that can stop you from achieving this. So I want you to know that. Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. Nobody bothers with me anymore. I think that the vast majority of people who used to comment could probably do with a little bit of butter and bacon these days when I speak to them. So yeah, I completely get it. And when we first go through this, you'll have exactly the same conversations with people that I do. However, how we eat is up to us. And even if it does just require a smile and a nod, then give the smile and the nod. We know why we're doing this. We understand the science behind keto, and anyone who's read through the plan, I hope that it gives you that reassurance as to why we choose whole foods and why we choose nutrient dense foods and things to fuel the body. And I guess the rest of the world is just going to have to try and keep up with us when we're taking over, basically. Yeah, it does get easier. Absolutely, it gets easier. It just becomes the normal way of doing things. So Sherry says, I was a vegan for a year, so my family... Yeah, absolutely. I didn't eat meat for a long time either, Sherry, and that was far more difficult for my family than the keto way of eating, because what I find is with keto meals, it's very easy to adjust them for whoever is eating. You know, I would love my family to just to ditch the white carbs and to jump in. But at the moment, they're not choosing to do that. So the foods that I make are really easy to just add whatever carbohydrates that they want on there. You know, that they're free to choose as well. So yeah, not so much of an excuse these days, because who doesn't love a cooked dinner? Who doesn't love a cooked breakfast and proper food, or a nice salad, or vegetables, or a stir fry? Very, very easy to get people involved and to enjoy the food, really. I mean, there's nothing about keto food that you can't like, other than bone broth. I know people don't always like that, but that's just down to personal taste. That's not a necessary thing, that's a personal thing. So just to stimulate some debate, really, going into this, what are the sort of thoughts that you found yourself making? I mean, do you make assumptions about yourself? I know Sherry uses those sort of her medical conditions as a kind of way to explain her weight, and for me it was always very much this is me, this is my identity, and I used that as a sort of excuse, really, to just carry on as I was. And I used to pretend that I was happy in my skin, that, you know, I wouldn't be fat shamed, that I would be you know, a proud big woman, but the reality is that I was often hidden in what my husband calls tents, that sort of large blousy clothing and things like that. So I don't know how proud I was, really. You know, I stopped doing things that maybe I would have liked to have done. I remember once thinking that, oh, you know, we'd love to go on holiday and I'd love to go horse riding, and then I noticed that there was a weight limit for the horse riding, and I was way over it. So, you know, there was even activities which I wasn't able to do because of my weight, and that certainly didn't make me feel good. So I think there was a lot of things that I used as a reason to be the way I was. Yeah. So has anyone else had those, you know, made assumptions about themselves as to you know, why they are as they are, and what's changed? I think that's what we need to know, is what is changing in your mindset or in your behaviors, really. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fatty liver is definitely something that people assume is to do with fat, but as we know, the body only stores fat in the liver when it's created from glycogen and carbohydrates. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that you're in fat burning mode now. So, and that means all fat. So all fat in the body is burnt when we're in ketosis. So fingers crossed, it's coming off from everywhere. And we would all love it to come off those problem areas first, but unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that, but eventually it does all go. Yeah. People assuming I'm pregnant. Oh no, Sherry, that's no good. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I had those looks myself. So yeah, I completely get that. Deborah says, I stopped taking my daughter swimming. Hopefully I'll be back in the pool. Yeah, absolutely. Why on earth are we stopping the things that we love doing? You know, surely no cake is worth that sort of restriction on our lifestyle. We should be able to do exactly what we want to do. And the great thing about ketogenic food, I'm sure, Debbie, you've seen through the plan, is it's actually nice food. We don't need to feel deprived. We can be full. We can have great meals. We can sit down with our families. We can go out for dinner. There's nothing to stop us from enjoying this. I'm 18 months in now, and other than only being able to have a black coffee when I met Sarah earlier today because we went to a coffee shop that it was crisps or cake, but that was okay. We were only there for a couple of hours. It was fine. But other than those small little adjustments, the only thing that is changing is my health and my weight and my outlook on life and my confidence. There are so many things to gain, and so few things to actually sacrifice. If you think of how trivial a choice between, you know, a steak and a jacket potato is, you're always going to choose the steak anyway. There's no sacrifice to eating keto. It's just understanding the easy ways and the little strategies of making it really simple to make those choices. And I think once you've got those things in place, once you know where you can go and have a great meal out, you know what you can do for your Sunday lunch, and you know you've got those strategies in place, then this becomes so easy, very natural, and all that happens is that you lose weight, which is amazing. And of course, all those internal things, the reduced inflammation, the reduced pain, the better sleep, all those things start to come. Terry says, for me, it slowly started me to isolate and not doing anything with people. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, Terry, why would life slow down at 50? You know, we know that life starts, surely. I'm hoping so anyway. Please don't tell me it's all over. But yeah, there's no need. And I think that some of this, you know, declining in health we've got to ask ourselves why. You know, the human body can be healthy or it can be unhealthy, and it's a lot to do with how we fuel it and how we look after it and what we do to actually help renew the cells. So I think what I found really, really interesting looking at keto is its protective mechanism on the brain and how it's protects the brain from aging and things like that. And I think we've talked about that in the group, how some people are here because they want to be fit and active and have that mental clarity throughout their life. There's no need to spend, you know, all those decades with declining health. We can actually start to reverse that process and be really healthy. And I know there's lots of people doing it, which is fantastic. Yeah. So Terry says, I'm starting to feel like I can do this. Other diets made me feel like I could not do it. Absolutely, Terry. And it's because the food is so filling, it's satisfying, it's tasty, and we don't have to feel that we're being deprived. So, yeah, you're right. The food is delicious. Yeah. And exactly, this is about making that decision to reclaim our lives. So much is impacted when we fuel ourselves incorrectly. Our sleep, our stress, our hormones, our relationships, our activity level, our lifestyle in general is actually impacted by how our body is, because ultimately our body is our home. It's the only place we ever get to actually live. And you know what it's like when the house is a mess and you just feel all out of sync. The body's exactly the same. It's a holistic thing, isn't it? It's all to do with not just our physical health, but how our physical health impacts the rest of our lives. So we can definitely see this as a holistic approach, and hopefully that's why having a group around this 28-day plan and having each other here and hopefully doing our sort of face-to-face stuff and everything else really brings in that holistic approach to weight management and to health management and to the keto lifestyle as well. So hopefully, all in all, we're going to have loads and loads of benefits. And as soon as you see even a slight change, it may not be on the scale like we've said, but those slight changes we need to celebrate. We need to give that positive feedback mechanism to our behaviors, because as we know, as soon as someone tells us our behavior is amazing, we're more likely to do it. So, you know, that our mind loves praise and everything else. So instead of giving us, you know, punishing ourselves with food, we can actually start to really embrace some of the really positive behaviors and start rewarding ourselves with nutritious food, start rewarding ourselves with activities and things like that, and all that stuff is really, really good. Oh, still having the breakout, Sherry. Oh, the thing is, Sherry brought up an important point here, and it's something that I was thinking about the other day. That's only just started to settle for me, really. When you're releasing fat from fat cells, as you might know, fat cells are kind of the body's storage of all things, including fat, but they also store toxins and they store our hormones as well, excess hormones. So when you release fat from the fat cells, lots of toxins and hormones are released. It's why during the first couple of weeks of keto we can feel really, really rough, but also when we're releasing all that excess estrogen and things like that, then it's kind of like puberty in reverse. So yeah, you do get breakouts, but it's actually a really, really good sign that you are collapsing fat cells, and that is the name of the game. If you've got those hormones being released and you feel that difference in your hormonal balance, and you have your breakouts. I've actually got breakouts at the moment, but that's more to do with not having slept probably than anything else. But yeah, it's a really, really good indication that you're releasing fat from the fat cells. So it's not great, however, it's something to be celebrated because it does mean that you're burning body fat, which is fantastic. So Deborah said, I work in medical research and high fat is high on the agenda with regards to brain. It is absolutely. They've started to mention things like Alzheimer's as a type of diabetes. Basically, the brain becomes intolerant to carbohydrate and can't actually get the energy it needs into the mitochondria, and the mitochondria within the cells start to die off. Now, this doesn't happen with ketones, and ketones can actually help fuel the aging brain better, and can start to sort of upregulate mitochondria in brain cells as well. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, an area that we're going to be looking more and more into as we go forward. We're already looking, the ketone. What we're talking about, yeah, the ketogenic diet is used therapeutically in terms of seizures. So we do know that it has this huge impact on the brain, and we know it has a therapeutic effect. So I think as we go forward, it's definitely something that we're going to be looking into more and more in terms of brain function. And I know for me, I don't think there's any way that I could be doing a full-time job, building this amazing community on very little sleep, but so, feeling still so energetic and passionate. I'm not quite sure whether I would have the same ability to do all these amazing things and to still keep functioning in terms of mental clarity if I was still on the horrific diet that I was before. Because I remember the reason I went to the doctors is I thought I was dying. I literally thought there was something so wrong with me that I was going to come out with some sort of I don't know, some sort of autoimmune disease or something. I did come out with a metabolic disorder, but I really did feel absolutely atrocious. So for me, there's a definite difference in how I feel mentally as well as physically. I don't think Debbie meant it's bad for the brain. I think it's all the research is very, very positive. Yeah. Yeah, breakouts seem to be, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. Yeah, but the idea of mitochondrial function, basically every cell in our body has these powerhouses, batteries within the cell, and they're basically what takes things like carbohydrates or fat and releases the energy into the cell. So they're kind of the engines of every cell in our body, and things like fasting and the ketogenic diet have actually been shown not only to improve the function of the mitochondria, but when the cells divide and reproduce, after a fasted state and in ketosis, you actually have more mitochondria in each cell. It is incredible. But this is how we evolved. We evolved in a high-fat, low-carbohydrate environment, hunter-gatherers with huge brains, and the reason that we evolved like that is because we were hunting and eating fat and protein and low carbohydrate. This is why we are as we are, and it's why when you introduce products that the human body isn't evolved to eat, we start to see things like an increase in the number of instances of diabetes, increasing instances of cancer, increasing instances of heart disease, and basically we make our population really, really sick. So basically it's like feeding steak to a rabbit, or feeding a lion hay. Our bodies have evolved to eat a certain way, and it's only in the last couple of thousand years that the Europeans have even had grain. Before that point, we were living far more ketogenically than we are now. You've had baby brain. Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. And I'm sure you're probably aware that the reason that baby brain exists is because the fetal brain develops at such a rate that it actually strips the maternal brain of its omega-3 fats, and we do actually lose a little bit of our brain during our pregnancy. And if we're not replenishing our brain with omega-3 fats and with the fatty acids that we use to create more brain cells, then yes, we do end up actually stripping our own brain for the sake of the fetal brain and their development as well. So it's definitely something that you know, I haven't done much work with keto and pregnancy or high fat pregnancy, but you know, I do have a background in maternity, and I would absolutely love to get on my soapbox and start talking about proper nutrition for pregnancy and proper nutrition for breastfeeding and for women in general. I think that we are literally robbing ourselves of really vital nutrition when we start to drop fat. And yeah, don't get me started basically on eating in pregnancy. When I had my first child, gestational diabetes wasn't really a thing. Now gestational diabetes is such a thing that the majority of people, even in the UK, are starting to actually be tested for it because it's so prevalent, and it's causing real issues for women and babies. So yeah, and of course that's all down to a high carbohydrate diet, which can again be cured and managed really, really well by simply removing carbohydrate from the diet. So, but anyway, I won't get on my soapbox about that. How can I get my brain back? Basically, we need to start fueling our brains, and we do that from healthy fats. And the fats that you really want to look at for the brain is your medium chain triglycerides. So you're talking about coconut oil, but you're also talking about your short chain triglycerides and fatty acids as well. So you're talking about butter, but you want to look at omega-3. It's your oily fish. The brain is in a constant state of depletion from omega-3 because of our diet. And so if you're really keen to start looking at you know, upregulating your brain, then have a look at oily fish and your omega-3s, and start to get the balance with the omega-3s there. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? That during pregnancy we're even more sort of craving the sorts of food that we should be eating. But I'm pretty sure that a lot of people in their pregnancies didn't want to gain lots of weight, and probably went down the low fat route, unfortunately, and started to eat more fruit and vegetables, which obviously don't help. Well, veg is okay, but I know that a lot of people eat a lot of fruit in pregnancy, and then obviously can have issues with their, not just their blood sugar, but also their weight gain as well. Yeah, toast, crackers and oatmeal, fantastic, so nutritious. Yeah, it's you know, I know, I've been there. I completely understand what the advice is that's given at the moment, but hopefully that will change. Yeah, but I know oily fish, you can talk about oily fish and even doctors will sort of nod their heads knowingly. So when I talk about avocados, nuts and seeds and oily fish, everyone just goes, yes, yes, yes. It's only when I talk about bacon and butter and everything else that people start to lose their minds. Can I eat canned mackerel in oil and mix with mayo? Yes, Sarah, you can. I would choose olive oil over a seed oil where possible. However, as long as you're not going to heat the oil, it's normally okay. So I would definitely say oily fish either in brine, or if you can find it in olive oil, then that's fantastic. And yeah, very, very good. And in fact, the smaller the fish, the better in omega-3 they are, and the less of those sorts of heavy metals that fish start to get when they get really big and really old. So yeah, I would say the smaller the better. So mackerel, sardines, small trout, salmon, that sort of thing. And I'm sure there's other fish where other people are. I mean, I'm talking about sort of the cold water fish because we're in the UK, but I'm sure wherever you are in the world that there is a great local fish that you could have a look into. Yeah, it's lovely. Mackerel's great. Always reminds me of camping and being down West Wales and actually catching the mackerel straight out the sea and onto the barbecue, and fantastic. So yeah, I would definitely say that fish, if you're not eating it yet, it's definitely something to try and sneak into your diet as often as you can. You know, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, a bit like my bone broth really, but yeah, oily fish in terms of our brain, our heart, you can't beat it really. It's one of those most nutrient dense foods alongside liver, which, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with, so definitely up there. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic, isn't it? And there's fantastic choice out there, and I think once that you open your mind up to a whole host of ketogenic foods, then you start realizing that actually we're not as restricted as maybe people think, and that we can actually eat quite a lot of food, and enjoy it as well. So, okay, so what was it? Pickled cucumber with yum. That sounds really nice, Sherry, actually. It does sound good. Yeah, so I'm going to end the session because I need to go and get sorted because I've got work tomorrow, with a bit more, just a summary of mindset, really. I want people to go away from this session understanding that we are the result of our own decisions and our own behaviours and our own thought processes. It is up to us to interpret the reality that's going on in front of us, so we can decide whether keto is going to be difficult, whether there's going to be humps in the road, whether we're going to end up cheating. You know, they're all decisions that we make. We can also make a decision to make the ketogenic lifestyle easy. We can decide to find strategies to make it work for us and our families. We can decide to communicate with other people so that we can foster sort of a mutual respect of how people are eating and the decisions that we're making. We can decide that we are no longer going to be the person that we are now, and we're going to step into a new body and a new way of thinking and a new set of habits and behaviours. It's completely up to us now to make that decision whether we're going to move forward or whether we're going to keep struggling. It's a conscious decision that we can make. And I hope that we can support each other to make the sorts of decisions that we need to make to achieve our goals. And we've all got different goals, but hopefully we can keep each other motivated, and we can remind each other that it is a conscious decision to make this difficult, and it's a conscious decision to make this easy. It can be easy. It's just putting a set of strategies in place to make sure that we can easily make choices which are ketogenic, and that's it really. And we've got 4 weeks at least. I hope you stick with us longer than that, but we've got 28 days now to really start that process of building those habits. I'm inspirational. Oh, bless you, Amelia. Thank you, guys. It's, you know, if you think about it, you're my accountability. You are keeping me from doing the things, you know, I've got to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So the more often I do these lives and the more often I come on here thinking, right, I can't have any inflammation in my cheeks. I've got to be really, really good. I've got to eat well and I've got to look after myself. So you're my accountability. So I owe my continued success to you guys and making sure that I come on live and haven't put on a stone in a week. So yeah, I hope that's given you a little bit of a boost. I know for me that it was mulling over in my brain. Thanks to Sarah for our conversation earlier. It really sparked off some thoughts in my head. And I think ultimately we can take responsibility now as adults and decide what we want to do, decide where we go next. What are we going to do? Are we going to open that plan? Are we going to read it through? Are we going to plan for our day? Are we going to make sure that we eat plenty of food so that we're not walking around like hungry time bombs? Are we going to sort of implement those sorts of behaviors? Are we going to finally get rid of those little morsels of carbs? Are we finally going to, you know, take that next step, whatever it is for you? It could be a first step, it could be the next step. But it's up to us now, and I'm handing over that power to you. It's completely up to you from here. I'm going to go and have a bath. I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you more in the group. Tomorrow is Monday Motivation, so be prepared. I'm going to be in the group being really motivational, and I hope that you can be really motivational with me. And I'll be live again on Saturday night for the States and Sunday evening for the UK. I can meet you weekly. Yeah, Absolutely, Sarah. Let's do it. Let's brainstorm. But yeah, love to you all. And yeah, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Just eat good food. That's it. Bye, Alex. All right, Keto Talk sounds cool. Okay, thanks, Ellen. Good night, both. Good night, everybody, and I'll see you soon. If you've got any more questions or any more comments, feel free to keep adding them, and I will reply. Bye.